Today we are taking a look at a piece of cultural history that you likely already know, or at least you think you know.
Right. It is definitely one of those stories everyone has some sort of familiarity with.
Exactly. So our source material for this conversation is this incredibly insightful guide called Chasing the Green Light, a guide to the Great Gatsby.
It's a fantastic breakdown of the text.
It really is. Now, you are probably familiar with F. Scott Fitzgerald's 1925 novel. You've seen the movie adaptations, you know the whole Roaring Twenties aesthetic. But our mission today isn't to just rehash the plot.
No, we want to go much deeper than that.
Right. Instead, we're using this guide to really strip away the glitter and look at the actual mechanics of the story. Because to really understand what's happening, we need to frame the 1920s not just as this fun era of jazz and massive wealth, but as a very specific psychological moment.
Yeah, that context is everything.
We are talking about a society coming out of the catastrophic trauma of the First World War. They are plunging headfirst into an era of intense, blinding glamour, unprecedented consumerism, and lurking right beneath all those champagne glasses is a deeply rooted, hidden corruption.
It is a fascinating pivot point in history, and honestly, that is exactly why this deep dive matters for you today, because the source material acts as a shortcut to understanding cultural themes that are arguably more relevant now than they were a century ago.
Oh, sure.
When we look closely at this analysis, we aren't just examining a tragic romance. We are dissecting the true nature of the American dream, the mechanics of class warfare disguised as high society, the devastating dangers of unchecked obsession, and I mean, this is the big one, this stark, often terrifying divide between the illusions we project to the world and the reality we actually inhabit.
Okay, let's unpack this. We all know the basic setup. Our narrator, Nick Carraway, moves to West Egg, Long Island in the summer of 1922.
A very specific geography.
Very specific. And the guide emphasizes the spatial arrangement right off the bat because it is essentially a physical map of the era's social hierarchy.
It maps perfectly onto the class divides.
Right. So you have Nick renting this modest, quiet little house, but he is sandwiched right next to this colossal European-style mansion owned by the mysterious J. Gatsby.
Just massive contrast right there.
Massive. And then, sitting directly across the bay, you have Nick's cousin, Daisy Buchanan, and her husband, Tom. And the guide characterizes Tom not just as wealthy, but as possessing the kind of arrogance that only comes from generations of untouched privilege.
Yeah, the physical boundaries of this world are essentially the social boundaries made manifest. You have the water dividing West Egg and East Egg, which serves as an insurmountable moat between two completely different species of wealth.
Different species is a great way to put it.
Across the bay in East Egg, Tom and Daisy represent old money. Their wealth is established, it's inherited, and it comes with a very specific, deeply ingrained pedigree.
Right, they belong there.
Exactly, but on Nick's side in West Egg, you have Gatsby representing new money. He has the capital, obviously, but he completely lacks the societal anchor.
Did in the history.
Right, and that geographical boundary forces Gatsby's hand. Because he cannot seamlessly cross that bay into the old money world, he has to engineer a way to lure them across the water to him.
Which brings us to the parties.
The famous parties.
Everyone remembers the Gatsby parties. They are legendary, extravagant, almost manic in their scale. But the analysis here reframes these massive weekend blowouts entirely.
They aren't just for fun.
Not at all. These aren't just celebrations. They are weapons of social infiltration.
A Trojan horse.
Exactly. It's a Trojan horse wrapped in jazz and illegal liquor. And the ultimate irony, which our source points out so well, is the anonymity of it all.
It is staggering when you think about it.
We have hundreds of the most prominent people in society drinking this man's expensive champagne, using his sprawling estate as basically an amusement park, and almost none of them have any idea who he actually is. He's a ghost in his own house.
And that ghost-like status is an absolute necessity for Gatsby.
How so?
Well, when nobody knows your actual origin, people will simply invent one for you. And that's precisely what happens at these parties.
The rumors?
The rumors start swirling. Is he a bootlegger? A spy? Did he kill a man?
Right. People are just making things up as they drink his alcohol.
Exactly. And Gatsby allows these rumors to flourish because a dangerous, mysterious myth is far more socially potent than the reality. The reality being a poor boy from North Dakota who reinvented himself.
He has to hide that at all costs.
Yes, his entire existence in West Egg is performative wealth. I mean, he buys a massive library full of books with uncut pages.
Meaning they've never been read.
Right. It's all a theatrical set piece designed to mask the friction between his immense new wealth and his lack of established pedigree.
The performative aspect is absolutely crucial. Because, and here's where it gets really interesting, what is the actual point of this massive multi-million-dollar performance?
It's the core question of the book.
The guide dives deep into Gatsby's true motivation here. This colossal mansion, the flowing champagne, the orchestras playing until dawn, absolutely none of it is for him or his own enjoyment.
He barely even participates.
Right, he doesn't even drink at his own parties. The entire enterprise is a meticulously crafted, desperately elaborate trap.
A trap for one person.
It is a beacon constructed for one singular purpose, to catch the attention of Daisy, his former lover from 5 years prior. Every single dollar he has illegally acquired, every social connection he has forged is just bait.
It is a staggering level of dedication. But as the source material explores, it crosses the line from romantic devotion into a toxic compulsion for control.
It definitely stops being romantic when you look that closely at it.
And this brings us to what is arguably the most famous symbol in American literature, the green light.
Yes, the guide focuses heavily on this image.
Night after night, Gatsby stands alone on his lawn at the edge of the water, just staring across the bay at a single green light at the end of Daisy's dock.
There is something so profoundly isolating about that image. You have a guy who is actively hosting hundreds of people in a roaring celebration just behind him, yet he is completely alone in the dark, physically reaching out toward a tiny colored bulb across an impassable body of water.
While it's easy to read that green light as simply a romantic yearning, the guide points out a much darker, more complex undercurrent.
What does it signify beyond the romance?
On a macro level, yes, it symbolizes the American dream, the tantalizing promise that if you strive hard enough, you can grasp whatever you desire.
Sure.
But on a micro-psychological level for Gatsby, it represents an overwhelming, almost pathological desire to conquer time itself.
To conquer time.
Yes, he isn't just looking at Daisy's house across the bay, he is looking at 5 years ago.
Wow.
He is looking at a specific window of time when they were together, before she married Tom, before the reality of their class differences pulled them apart. He genuinely believes that with enough capital and a big enough spectacle, he can literally rewind the clock.
I want you, listening to this right now, to pause and really think about the mechanics of that desire. Think about a time when you tried to perfectly recreate a moment from your past.
It is a very universal feeling.
Maybe it was a childhood vacation spot you returned to as an adult, or trying to reignite a relationship that ended years ago, or even just chasing the feeling of a time in your life when everything felt simple and aligned.
You can try to set up all the exact same conditions.
You can set the stage perfectly, you can hit all the right notes, but it never actually feels the same, does it? The magic is always slightly off.
It never works.
That is the exact human experience Gatsby is navigating, but he is doing it with millions of dollars and human lives in the balance. His devotion to Daisy is described as pure, but the guide hammers home that it is entirely, fatally unrealistic, because he's trying to overwrite reality with memory.
You cannot buy a ticket back to 5 years ago.
You just can't.
And that friction is the engine of the entire narrative. You have Gatsby's impossible demand to repeat the past, grinding directly against the harsh, inflexible reality of the present.
The present always wins.
Always. He has spent years building this monumental illusion of Jay Gatsby, wealthy aristocrat. But illusions, by their very nature, lack a foundation.
They are fragile.
Incredibly fragile. And when you build an identity entirely around a fantasy, the collapse isn't just a possibility, it's an inevitability.
And the collapse is spectacular. Let's move into the climax of the story, keeping that fragility in mind. Our narrator, Nick, acts as the bridge here. He actually facilitates the reunion between Gatsby and Daisy.
He sets it all in motion.
The trap finally snaps shut. They meet, the old sparks fly, and they begin a passionate affair right under Tom Buchanan's nose. For a very brief, intoxicating window of time, Gatsby actually believes he has pulled it off.
He really does.
He thinks he has reached across the bay and finally grasped that green light.
But the fatal flaw in his grand design is that he didn't factor in the agency and the ruthlessness of the old money world he was trying to infiltrate.
He didn't plan for Tom.
He completely underestimated Tom.
That is a crucial point.
Yeah.
Because Tom Buchanan is not a man who loses.
Never.
The guide breaks down the tension of the confrontation scene in the New York hotel room, and it is a masterclass in psychological
It
warfare.
really is the turning point of the whole text.
Tom doesn't just get angry about the affair. He surgically dismantles Gatsby. During this sweltering, claustrophobic argument, Tom aggressively exposes Gatsby's facade to Daisy and everyone else in the room.
He lays it all out.
He reveals that Gatsby's immense wealth isn't the result of some noble inheritance or brilliant innovation. He exposes Gatsby as a bootlegger, tied to organized crime and shady associates. In one swift, brutal motion, Tom takes the glittering, sophisticated image of Jay Gatsby and drags it straight into the mud.
What's fascinating here is how Tom weaponizes class.
Yes, explain that.
Tom doesn't defeat Gatsby by proving he's a better man for Daisy. He defeats Gatsby by reminding Daisy that Gatsby is, and always will be, a criminal from the lower classes.
It's all about status.
The guide really sharpens its focus on the theme of illusion versus reality in this moment. Gatsby created a completely fabricated identity to impress a woman who is fundamentally a creature of her elite environment.
Right.
But beneath the jazz, the tailored suits, and the flowing champagne, there was an underlying moral decay and emptiness to Gatsby's enterprise. Once Tom shines a light on that reality, the illusion evaporates.
It just disappears.
Daisy is terrified by the criminal reality of Gatsby's life, and she retreats back to the safety of Tom's established, insulated world.
And once that illusion shatters, the physical destruction follows with terrifying speed. The guide lays out the tragic chain of events that immediately follows that hotel confrontation, and it's less of a sequence of plot points and more of a massive fatal collision of all these overlapping social classes and secrets.
It's complete pileup.
Daisy is driving Gatsby's car back to Long Island. She is emotionally erratic, she's speeding, and she accidentally strikes and kills a woman in the street named Myrtle Wilson. And the cosmic, sickening irony of this moment is that Myrtle Wilson is Tom Buchanan's mistress.
It is the perfect encapsulation of the class warfare hiding beneath the story. The guide highlights the sheer cruelty of this climax.
It is incredibly cruel.
You have Myrtle, a working-class woman desperate to escape her own grim reality, struck down by a flashy new money car that is being driven by an old money wife.
It's horribly poetic.
The wealthy quite literally crush the working class beneath their tires. And what is Gatsby's response?
His response seals his doom. Driven by his blinding, all-consuming obsession with Daisy, he takes the blame for the crash.
Without hesitation.
Even after she has essentially rejected him in the hotel room, he decides he is going to protect her. He is willing to take the fall for a fatal hit and run just to preserve the fantasy of his role as her protector.
He is still trying to play the romantic hero. He is still desperately clinging to the dream, even as reality is crashing down around him in the most brutal, tangible way possible. A dead woman in the street.
He just won't let it go.
He completely refuses to wake up.
Which leads to the final fatal misunderstanding. Myrtle's husband, George Wilson, is a broken man, completely consumed by grief. He discovers that the car that killed his wife belongs to Gatsby.
And he gets a little push in that direction.
Right, through a series of manipulations helped along by Tom, who conveniently points George in Gatsby's direction. George comes to the natural conclusion that Gatsby was the driver, and therefore Gatsby is the man who killed his wife.
It's a direct line of misplaced vengeance.
George tracks Gatsby down to his mansion, shoots him dead in his own swimming pool, and then turns the gun on himself. Just like that, the mythic, untouchable Jay Gatsby is erased.
It is a breathtakingly rapid descent. In a matter of hours, we go from the absolute height of glamorous possibility to the darkest depths of tragedy.
It gives you whiplash.
And the source material doesn't let us look away from the true cost of the dream Gatsby was chasing. The aftermath of the violence is perhaps the most damning indictment of the society Fitzgerald was writing about.
The aftermath is chilling. Let's look at the funeral. We spent the first half of this deep dive establishing the sheer scale of Gatsby's parties. Hundreds of the most influential, well-connected people in New York flocked to his house every weekend.
The entire city was there.
They drank his liquor, they networked, they gossiped, they consumed everything he had to offer. But when he is murdered, the guide notes the devastating reality. Almost none of those guests attend his funeral.
Nobody shows up.
They simply do not care. They were completely loyal to the spectacle, but they had absolutely no loyalty to the human being providing it.
The empty funeral perfectly illustrates the vast, echoing emptiness of the world Gatsby was trying so desperately to conquer.
It was hollow the whole time.
He wanted to belong to a class of people who are fundamentally incapable of genuine connection. And the contrast between Gatsby's lonely death and how Tom and Daisy handle the fallout is the final bitter pill the guide asks us to swallow.
It is infuriating to read, because meanwhile, Tom and Daisy, the two people whose actions are actually responsible for the affair, the hit and run, and the entire tragic mess-ons, they simply pack their bags and leave town.
They just vanish.
They don't attend the funeral, they don't face the police, they take zero responsibility for the trail of bodies and shattered lives they have left in their wake. They just retreat back into the fortress of their vast wealth and disappear, leaving everyone else to clean up the blood.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the guide pulls out a major, enduring sociological theme here. The story is a heavy critique of a system where society frequently protects the powerful and the established, while completely abandoning the aspirational dreamers.
We're simply reporting what the guide emphasizes here, but it's a stark observation.
Right, as the text presents it, Tom and Daisy are careless people. They smash up things and creatures, and then they retreat back into their money or whatever it is that keeps them together and let other people clean up the mess they've made.
Careless is the perfect word for them.
And the real tragedy, the enduring relevance of the text, is that the society they live in, the society we still largely recognize today, allows them to do exactly that without consequence.
It's a brutal realization, and it is the exact realization that breaks our narrator, Nick. The guide explains how Nick becomes utterly disillusioned with the East Coast and the wealthy elite. He's seen behind the curtain of this glamorous, jazz-soaked lifestyle, and he is disgusted by the moral rot he finds at its core.
He's totally done with it.
He packs up his modest house and returns to the Midwest. He finally understands that Gatsby's dream, as beautiful and intensely pure as it might have seemed to Gatsby himself, was built on a flimsy, toxic illusion. It had absolutely no foundation in reality.
That realization is the core of what we are meant to take away from this exploration. The guide strips away the romance and the sequins of the 1920s setting to force us to look at the cold, hard mechanics of human nature.
So what does this all mean for us, the readers, nearly 100 years later? The guide distills this down to a few vital takeaways that are incredibly powerful for you to keep in mind.
I think these are essential.
First, dreams that are entirely disconnected from reality will eventually destroy you. If you build your entire life, your entire identity on a fantasy that cannot exist in the real world, the collapse is inevitable.
That's the core of Gatsby's failure.
Second, the correlation between immense wealth and happiness is a myth. Gatsby possessed virtually limitless capital, and he died miserable, paranoid, and entirely alone.
Money couldn't buy the one thing he actually wanted.
Exactly. Third, the past is a closed door.
Yeah.
You cannot recreate it, you cannot rewrite it, no matter how desperately you want it to be otherwise. Nostalgia is a liar.
It always is.
And finally, as we saw with Tom and Daisy, the wealthy and powerful possess a terrifying ability to insulate themselves from the consequences of their actions, leaving the vulnerable, the Myrtles, the Georges, and even the Gatsbys to pay the ultimate price.
Those takeaways are sharply articulated in our source material. They demand that we look past the aesthetic of the Roaring Twenties and really engage with the cautionary tale underneath. And the way the guide wraps up its analysis brings all these threads together beautifully.
It really does. It concludes by focusing on the iconic final line of the novel. Even if you haven't picked up the book since high school, you likely know the rhythm and the feeling of this last sentence.
It's unforgettable.
It speaks to how we as humans are constantly beating our oars against the current, struggling forward into the future, while at the exact same time, we are relentlessly pulled back into the past.
It captures the human condition perfectly.
We are all, in our own unique ways, standing on the edge of the water, reaching for our own green light, fighting against the undeniable current of time.
It is a profound, almost comforting thought about shared human struggle. But it also possesses a much darker edge when you consider the totality of Gatsby's specific journey.
How so?
This raises an important question, one that builds purely on the text and the thematic analysis we've discussed today.
Okay, let's hear it.
We know, as a matter of fact, that Gatsby took the blame for the fatal car crash specifically to protect Daisy.
Right.
And we also know from the guide's breakdown that his entire identity, the very concept of J. Gatsby, was a fake creation. It was an elaborate piece of theater designed solely to win her over.
All performative.
Exactly. So when he died alone in that pool, abandoned by the hundreds of people he entertained, did Gatsby actually sacrifice his life out of true selfless love for the real Daisy Buchanan? Or did he simply die to protect the ultimate illusion he had spent his entire adult life building?
That is heavy.
Was he protecting the flesh and blood woman, or was he protecting the dream he had projected onto her?
Wow. Was he protecting the woman, or was he protecting the dream? That is exactly the kind of question that elevates this from a simple story into something brilliant and haunting. That ambiguity is where the real power of the narrative lives.
It really is.
I want you to really mull that question over today as you think about the green lights in your own life. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into chasing the green light.
It's been a great conversation.
It has been an absolute privilege to unpack this incredibly rich source material with you. As you go about your week, keep questioning the reality behind the glamour you see in the world. We will catch you next time.